Our other witnesses are Mrs. Danielle Carter-Williams. Ms. Carter-Williams is a Chicago resident and fitness trainer who advocates for Chicago residents. She serves as vice president of Chicago Flips Red, a grassroots movement dedicated to empowering communities across Chicago to embrace bold, conservative solutions for a brighter future.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and esteemed members of the subcommittee. And thank you to President Donald J. Trump, the people's president, for giving Chicago Flips Red our first platform, and to the subcommittee for the opportunity to speak truth in the people's house. We proudly stand with our president to bring his message to the Black American community and expose the lies pushed by the Democrat Party and the fake news media. We are here to confront the reality of sanctuary cities. Despite the word sanctuaries, these cities are anything but safe. Chicago has claimed the title for years, and now we're drowning in the consequences. Lifelong residents are pushed aside, schools are overcrowded, crime is out of control, and affordable housing is vanishing. This crisis exploded under Biden and were worsened by the reckless, agenda-driven leadership of Lori Lightfoot and Brandon Johnson. They didn't just ignore the collapse, they fueled it. In December 2023, a few aldermen tried to give us a voice, but the mayor and his allies used systematic stunts to block the vote on a non-binding sanctuary city referendum, silencing Chicagoans and stripping us of our right to choose. Every elected official swears an oath to serve their constituents and uphold the Constitution. Brandon Johnson has failed. He's dismissed that oath in his obsession with keeping Chicago a sanctuary for illegal aliens. He's driven our city into a $1 billion deficit, handed out shady non-bid contracts, and funneled over $6 million into services for illegal aliens. That's why we demand a full forensic audit focused on migrant-related spending. This isn't mismanagement, it's organized looting of taxpayer dollars. ShotSpotter, a life-saving gunshot detection tool, is gone. Hyde Park now bears a permanent 720-bed shelter as illegal alien shelters multiply all over our city. Tax increment financing, known as TIF, meant to revive struggling areas, are being embezzled. Our kids aren't learning to read, while the city teachers cater to non-English speakers. These are deliberate acts of neglect, justified by Chicago's sanctuary city status. Lori Lightfoot licked the fuse with executive orders, and DEI Johnson poured gasoline on the fire. Field houses has been taken, police stations overrun with illegal aliens in tents and are on the floors, leaving officers demoralized. My husband, a retired CPD officer, saw it all. Violence, disease, measles and tuberculosis outbreak, prostitution, and bed bugs that reached our home. Since 2025, over 51,000 illegal aliens have flooded into Chicago. The city's answer? Blend migrant and homeless shelters under the One System initiative and hope no one noticed. Homelessness has jumped by 207% as 2,100 beds go to illegal aliens. When state funding ends in 2025, corrupt insiders will pass the contracts among themselves. This isn't policies, it's racketeering. My husband and I are tax-paying business owners. We did everything right. We invested in the Opportunity Zone. Thank you, President Trump. Applied for grants, and we were denied. Yet 140,000 illegal alien-run businesses were funded without question. Law-abiding citizens are being replaced to serve a political machine. MS-13, Trendy Agua, they're here. Their graffiti marks our neighborhoods. New gangs, the Venezuelan Disciple, is forming in our neighborhoods. One shelter gets 20 to 30 police calls daily. Drug use, harassment, loitering, and violence have turned parks, sidewalks, and porches into no-go zones. This isn't immigration. This is an invasion. Sanctuary cities do not protect us, they abandon us. The citizens of Chicago, we demand a full forensic audit of every dollar tied
Ms.
to
Carter
migrants.
Walters. Very much appreciate your testimony, but we have to limit it to 5 minutes. But you'll have an opportunity to expand on those remarks during the question period. So appreciate your testimony.
Okay.
And of course, in sanctuary jurisdictions, everything they do is cheered or enabled. And that brings us to the deceptive term as well, sanctuary jurisdictions. It sounds noble, doesn't it? A haven, a refuge. But for whom? Not our sons and daughters, though left vulnerable due to them. Our communities are then torn apart. These sanctuaries shield the lawless, not the lawful, and that betrayal cuts to the core of what America must stand against. The American people spoke loud and clear in November. It's time for Congress to wake up, shift into the President Trump's gear, and act decisively. End sanctuary cities for good and launch mass deportations now. Every day we delay, we roll the dice on the next preventable tragedy, the next innocent life lost to a criminal alien that we could have deported. And lastly, just consider the numbers that are pretty much hot off the press. From October 1st, 2022 to February 6, 2025, more than 25,000 detainers were declined by sanctuary jails, more than 1,400 instances. The jails failed to give adequate notification to ICE to take custody of the aliens. You see it at more than half of the declined detainers were prisons in California, just where we saw a heinous crime where the child's body was found 10 minutes from where I grew up. When's enough enough? Congress needs to act. Give ICE the resources to act in accordance with the law, deliver on an electoral mandate, secure American communities, and then it's time for statutory changes to make sure these changes last and our system gets ramped up in terms of integrity. I yield back.
In Chicago, where they've released over a 3-year period more than 1,000 criminals back into your community, does that make you feel safer as a citizen?
No.
Did it make your community feel safer?
No.
And did it provide actual safety when you saw MS-13 Trendy Agua roaming the streets there?
No.
So you've demanded a full forensic audit of every dollar tied to migrant shelters, right?
Yes.
And a freeze on the $92 million budget until full reviews are completed?
Yes, sir.
And you want the accountability and community input?
Yes, sir.
And a federal investigation into potential corruption? And potentially, if there is corruption, you want prosecution. Is that right?
Yes.
And most importantly, you want an end to sanctuary policies that you feel disadvantages you guys as citizens of Chicago vis-a-vis illegal aliens who are being released into your community.
We want to end sanctuary cities.
I said what I said.
To try to fight crime. Should taxpayers continue to fund sanctuary jurisdictions?
No, not at all. If you are in defiance of federal law and you're not working with federal law enforcement, you shouldn't receive a darn dime. Again, there's a lot of cooperative jurisdictions out there under President Trump. The 287G agreements that we're seeing, kind of the opposite of a sanctuary jurisdiction, has skyrocketed since President Trump took office. Those jurisdictions should be rewarded and helped for acting in accordance with federal law.
Should federal facilities be moved out of jurisdictions that are sanctuary cities?
If you're talking detention facilities or something like that, a lot of them...
Let me give you an example, and I'm going to ask Mr. Chairman to introduce this letter I sent to Doge, would ask unanimous consent to enter that letter. But anyhow, I sent a letter. The SBA is moving facilities out of Boston, which is a sanctuary city, and I sent a letter to Doge saying, would you look into Dane County, Wisconsin, which is Madison? Would you look into moving facilities out of there if they're going to continue to be a sanctuary county? Do you think that's appropriate?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sheriff, so I mentioned Dane County, Wisconsin, and there was a situation where a gang member from Venezuela, Tren de Aragua gang member, he was charged with false imprisonment and battery in Dane County last year, went on to Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, which is about 100 miles from Madison to Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, over on the Mississippi River. And this gang member was charged with domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and strangulation by the Prairie du Chien Police Department. Does it surprise you that another community is affected when there is a sanctuary community that is not honoring ICE detainers?
No.
Does it make it more dangerous for people throughout the region, not just, let's use this example of Dane County, Wisconsin, does it make it more dangerous for people throughout a region as a result of having these sanctuary policies?
I think, like the gentleman over here said earlier, I think every situation is different, every location is different, every circumstance is different. But I do think the policies matter, and the policies that we're faced with in sanctuary policy is it's too hampering for the situation that we're dealing with on the ground.
Ms. Carter Walters, so you know that Wisconsin is just north of you in Chicago, and I just cited Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin is 100 miles from Madison, Wisconsin, and Kenosha, Wisconsin is only 64 miles north of Chicago. Should people in Wisconsin be concerned about the sanctuary policies that are in Chicago?
Exactly, because they don't just stay in Chicago. They're in Indiana. They're all in the suburbs. So yes, they definitely should be afraid.
Why in the world do civic leaders like Mayor Johnson want to advance policies like this that not only make their own city less safe, but the entire region less safe?
Because we believe that that's how they're funneling money and stealing our tax dollars. So that's why we are demanding a forensic audit on how a breakdown of how those funds were allocated, because we have yet received anything of a breakdown to show how our tax dollars were spent. So yes, we believe that's how they're funneling the money, and that's why we're asking for a forensic audit, and we want arrests being made.
People they serve. It takes place in these large cities, the San Franciscos, the Chicagos. When you look at Chicago, and Ms. Walters talking about Chicago, you had Lori Lightweight there. I mean, her approval rating was in the toilet. What, a 22% approval rating? I think she was the first incumbent to lose re-elect. And why is it? Her policies. It was the sanctuary city policies. She was horrible, absolutely horrible. All the anti-police rhetoric. Would you agree with me that that's why Lori Lightweight is no longer the mayor in Chicago?
Yes, and that's why Brandon Johnson has a 6% approval rating.
You should consider running for mayor. I think you're great. I want to thank you again, too, in 2005. You know, I read your bio. You were awarded a Medal of Valor for one of your deputies that was shot by an illegal multiple times, I believe.
That is correct.
Yeah, so thank you for your service. You guys are fantastic. It doesn't, of course not. The stories go on. Washington County, also in your state, illegal alien Alejandro Melandio Hernandez was arrested for manslaughter in a second degree for killing somebody while driving recklessly. The county ignored an ICE detainer, released him into the community, and he is still at large today. Does that sound conducive to public safety, Sheriff?
No.
Of course it doesn't. Let's go to Boston. April this year, Boston released an illegal alien charged with aggravated child rape rather than comply with an ICE detainer. Does that sound like conducive to public safety?
No.
Of course it doesn't, and the story goes on and on and on. Mr. Franco, we go to Baltimore. April 24, Raul Calderon, a 25-year-old Guatemalan national convicted of fourth-degree sex offense and second-degree assault. Despite ICE detainer's request, Baltimore County released him after suspending his prison sentence. Then in 2024, another individual, 25 years old, convicted of molesting 2 family members, 9 and 10 years old. It just goes on and on and on. Now, Baltimore has problems. You got a lot of corruption in Baltimore. Again, when you look at these major cities, Baltimore, Chicago, everywhere, they're run by far-left liberal Democrats and by Soros-funded DAs. And that's why you're getting clobbered in elections. The American people are sick and tired of it, and they're fighting back. Ms. Walters, I salute you. Thank you.
People. We love legal immigrants that come here the right way. They are great Americans. I'll tell you a story real quick. I was picked up in a taxi cab the other day in Washington, D.C. Young gentleman driving the taxi cab. I love to talk to people, start talking to him. He's from Ethiopia. He came here legally. He always wanted to be an architect. His cousin was an architect, and he admired him so much, and his cousin had helped him. But in Ethiopia, they tell you what you're going to be. You don't have that choice like you do in America. So he was told he wasn't going to be an architect. He legally immigrated here, worked his butt off, gave it everything he had, worked multiple jobs, got his degree, and was working still more because now he was getting his master's degree. He taught me. He said to me, for God's sake, protect your country. All these illegal immigrants coming here are not good. Legal immigrants are angrier about the illegal ones than anybody else. They did things the right way. They did it by the book. They're good people. We love them. So let's be clear. Cut the nonsense. I'm not directing that to you. And you know, let's also cut the nonsense because it costs money. There's only so much money in this world, and we're going through a lot of budgetary stuff right now. And I make it clear, I'm fighting for Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. Many of us are on both sides of the aisle. But when you're spending money on this stuff, it's less money for our children. It's less money for our seniors. It's less money for our veterans. It's less money for our disabled because we don't have an endless amount. So when you are spending tax dollars on that, our American people in our cities and in our rural areas and everywhere in between are getting hurt. Let's cut through the nonsense. We're taking things away from them, and it's wrong. You can't have a country without borders. You can't have public safety without law enforcement. You can't have public safety when you're releasing lawbreakers into the community. And not all illegals have committed horrendous crimes, but some have, and we're not checking on it properly. There have been murders. There have been rapes. There have been disfigurements. There has been all kinds of harm done. And when you create a sanctuary city or state, you are compounding that. And you know what? The only thing worse than the illegal people when they come here, especially those that are violent, are the people that condone that and give them benefits and help them to stay here. How wrong is that? They're hurting everybody else who voted for them.
And Ms. Walters, according to the report, the mayor of Chicago spent $638 million in vendor contracts for illegal aliens since 2023. Ms. Walters, have you seen your taxpayers' dollars being used to benefit illegal aliens instead of the American citizens?
Yes. And actually, after he spent all that money, he then came back and tried to propose a $300 million property tax on the American citizens.
Flashback.
Our next speaker is Danielle Carter.
So Brandon, you and all these Democratic mayors out here and governors, y'all talking about crashing out for these illegals, right? You all stood up there and said you will not allow Trump to come in here and get these illegals. Yeah, you can smile. We're in $1 billion deficit. And you spent half of our money, half of that on illegals. You campaigned and doubled down that you would not raise property taxes. I ain't gonna do that. You campaigned, went around doing that. And here we are right now. You wanted to raise our taxes $300 million. They shut it down. Now we back here for $150 million. Okay. See, this is what we asking now. Since you want to crash out, some of y'all say y'all willing to go to jail for it. Trump tomhoman. Make an example of this Negro right here first. Please come here first. Because you know what? We're going to help you. We want to forensic.
Ma'am, I would ask that you,
keep
your, hold on a second. Stop her time. Stop her time. Just a second. Just a second. Stop her time. Ma'am, I would ask that you, if you want to continue speaking, you have to make sure that your language is appropriate, okay? All right.
We got Alex.
Okay, you can begin her time again.
You're going to spend our tax dollars to go, Michael Rodriguez, you said to take Trump to court to protect these illegals. You said you're going to spend our tax dollars to take Trump to court to protect these illegals if they try to come in here in your district. And then you said all of y'all in cahoots with each other to do it. Okay, so now we about to make y'all famous. We're going to let all y'all constituents know who y'all ratting for, that y'all wouldn't spend our tax dollars to protect illegals and to get them legal services. So that's what we're doing. That's cool because we about to make all of y'all aldermen famous. Y'all think this is how it's going to rat? I think not. Flip Chicago red. We not playing.
So not only did he take our tax dollars and spend it on people who, and let me just say this, when you come across that border illegally, you have broke the law, therefore making you a criminal. So the 20 million people who cross this border are criminals. So let's just get that, get that straight right now. That's why we trust President Trump, because he is listening to the American citizens. And the Democrat Party, that's why their rating is, 26%? Because they refuse to listen to what the American citizens want.
Ms. Walters, I think really, Ms. Walters, I think really you're right. And I think, so is that how you see Chicago flipping red? Is it the immigration issue? I know that was a big issue in this election, and I agree with you. If people come across the border illegal, they are lawbreakers by definition. And we're not a sanctuary city in Alabama, but I'll tell you this, I had a 14-year-old girl drug into a restroom in Wetumpka, Alabama, and raped by an individual who he had claimed to be a minor when he came to the U.S. He was 31 years old.
What?
And the Biden administration didn't bother to do a background check, turn him loose in our community. And we're not a sanctuary city. I cannot imagine what these sanctuary cities are having to deal with. And these law enforcement officers, when they're trying to just, for public safety purposes, catch people and then not even notify us because they just want to release them back into the community. So tell me, so you think this issue of just the very people who supported the Democratic Party are being left in the cold, in my humble opinion. And so is that how you're seeing Chicago flip red, because of the Democratic policies and what they're doing to those communities they're supposed to be protecting?
Yes. Chicago flips red established because of that. And we are going to make it our business because we have seen the destruction that the Democratic Party policies have done to our communities in our city. It's funny that Mr. Garcia is from Chicago and he cannot tell you what's happening in our community, because if he came into our community, he would see all the gang graffiti, the Trendy Agua signs, the MS-13. He would see that across the street in the park and where they're putting the shelters at, that all the needles that's in the park, all night. All we hear is music all night, and the drinking and the defecating on the streets, all the the illegal restaurants that are allowed to operate on the residential, on our corners.
So Ms. Walters, in some ways, you feel almost like a prisoner in your own community because of the policies of the administration prior to Trump.
Yes, and then they can't lock him up. My husband just retired. He's a police officer. They cannot lock them up, and they wasn't reporting the numbers. So if an illegal alien committed a crime, they wasn't reporting it, and then you didn't know.
So that's why they say, oh, there's less crime by a lot of the illegals, because they're not bothering reporting the crimes that illegals are actually committing in those communities.
Yes.
I got you. Hey, real quick question, and you can finish up on this. Democrats, really, they attack Republicans often. They call us racist racist because of our opposition to sanctuary jurisdictions. What is your response to that when they say we're here trying to make communities safe and they're calling us racist? What is your response to that sort of rhetoric?
Well, I say call me a racist. And I don't want anybody who crossed over here illegally, unvetted, I don't want them in my community. So you call me racist because let me say, the Democratic Party is so far from reality. They go in their gated communities. I don't see any of those people that's advocating to keep these people here. I don't see them in their house and their communities. They don't have them around their children or their husbands, but yet and still they're advocating for us to allow this in our communities around our kids and our families.
Thank you, Ms. Walters. I got to yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On the screen, are you familiar with the name Abraham Gonzalez, Mr. Hallman? Do you know this guy? Abraham Gonzalez?
I do not.
Okay, this guy was released this year, February 28, 25. He was released. Look at what the Sheriff's Department put here. This is a ICE notification. They put the stamp on there, being released to the streets. Now, this guy had been in custody for 345 days. And ICE had sent this very form asking, hey, can you give us a 48-hour heads up before this guy who was charged with aggravated assault, charged with stealing an automobile, charged with menacing, can you just give us a heads up? And guess what Sanctuary City, Denver did? They called him 1 hour before, and ICE couldn't get there, and they released this guy to the streets as they stamped on the form. Now, what I find interesting, can we put that back up again? What I find interesting is under the section flag, see it over there on the right-hand side? It says he's cleared, but then look what it says, violent to staff. So the very people who released him to the streets knew this guy. He'd been charged again with aggravated assault, stealing a car, but he'd also been violent to the very people in the jail who were holding him, and they still wouldn't give notice to ICE. And then, as I said in my opening statement, this guy is released to the streets. ICE goes out to arrest him. Officer gets hurt. They had to tase the guy, so the migrant gets hurt. Tell me how that is not, tell me why that we should have that kind of policy happen, Mr. Hallman.
Well, we shouldn't. It doesn't keep our communities safer in any sense. And again, what they're trying to do here is they say, hey, at least we tried. An hour, heads up, or whatever. But how can they look at that man to release him on the streets, knowing the crimes that have been committed, knowing that risk? How can they say, hey, we'll see you later, as he goes off and could potentially commit another crime down the line? I mean, is it worth it to instill trust with the immigrant community? How about, the citizens, and how about the harm that they could face due to the unknown of releasing a dangerous criminal alien to the streets?
It is the job of the federal government to keep Americans safe. When violent gangs are taking over American cities like Chicago, that is an invading army. When you can't live peacefully in an apartment in Colorado, that is also an invading army. No judge, DA, or liberal mayor should be able to usurp the power of our commander-in-chief, who was elected by 77 million Americans, and now the Supreme Court agrees. Since the Democrats do not like the result of the election, you would think that they will be focusing on the midterms coming up, but instead they are engaging in a judicial coup d'etat. The reason they are not focused on the midterms is because they are not confident that they could take back control of the House of Representatives in 2 years because they have no leader and they have no valid message. The Democrat Party has a 21% approval rating with voters in this country. And why? Because their only message is Trump is bad. They've gone so far as to attack people for driving electric vehicles. They openly admit that they are DEI hires, and they claim that the reason they're not popular with voters right now is because they are not opposing Trump enough. That's the reaction to their failure. Their solution is to become more extreme and more unpopular with their policies. This question must be asked: does the Democrat Party hate President Trump more than they love our country and more than they love the safety of my fellow Americans? This might explain why they are willing to overtly defend members of Trinidad-Aragua MS-13 rather than stand up and clap for a child with a terminal brain cancer illness, or for a young man admitted to West Point, my alma mater, or for a family of the gentleman who was murdered in Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump derangement syndrome is real. It's a real thing. And sanctuary policies are harming my fellow Americans, as my witnesses have testified here today. This U.S. congressman is tired of seeing mothers, daughters, and wives of Americans raped, maimed, and murdered by Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and other violent criminals that have snuck across the border to destroy this great nation. All of us should support ICE raids, the hard work of Tom Homan, Customs and Border Protection, and the policies of our duly elected Commander-in-Chief. Ms. Carter-Walters, thank you for being here, ma'am. I really appreciate your testimony earlier. In your experience, specifically in Chicago, are communities of colors disproportionately impacted by illegal migrants getting special privileges? And if so, how?
Yes, so they are placed in our communities. They are not placed anywhere else but in our communities. And they are taking over our schools. So whereas you already had overcrowded schooling, so you might have 20 to 1 class. Now you have 40 to 1 class, and then they don't speak English. So now that's taken away from the child already who is already in an overcrowded classroom. And then you have where now we can't even, they took over our parks. So where you'll have grandmoms and things, kids, to keep the kids off the street, they house illegals into the field houses. So they took over our field houses. And then now apartments, whereas because our mayor is paying so much money for illegals to house them, now we have tenants that can't even, the landlords that won't even rent to American citizens because they're renting to illegals because they get paid more for illegals.
Now, let me ask you the next question, ma'am. You've been black for a pretty long time, right?
Yes.
So me too. I mean, I've been black for my entire life, so just want to acknowledge that. So by basically what you're saying, do you view yourself as a different American, or do you just care about the safety of our community? Are you a racist for feeling this way?
No.
Thank you very much. And Sheriff Wagner, thank you so much for your service. I really appreciate all you've done for this great country. You've been a hostage negotiator, detective, a patrol sergeant, and sheriff. Your accolades are unbelievable. My question for you is this. What are the Democrats in your state doing to prevent you from doing your job? And do you expect more of this, or are you not allowed to enforce the law?
It's come down to I'm not allowed to or else. And that's really what we're faced with. We have an attorney general that is going by his marching orders, whatever you want to call it, and coming after our little agency to serve as a message to the rest of the state of Washington. And if you look behind me, that's why these sheriffs are here today. They all feel the heat. They feel the situation is bearing down on us. We're only 39 sheriffs in our state, and our state needs sheriffs, believe it or not. But they keep trying the attack constantly.
Thank you. And as somebody that has worn the uniform, I understand the importance of leadership, and it starts at the top. Thank you so much for what you've done for our great nation.
The former ranking member said at our first immigration hearing that we Republicans were imagining a border crisis. So, Ms. Carter-Walters, are you imagining a border crisis? How would you respond to that?
And that's why President Trump we almost had a red wave in the United States, because we're tired of the lies, the gaslighting from the Democrat Party. All while everything they're saying right now that Trump is a threat. Everything is a threat. No, they're the threat. The Biden-Harris administration allowed 20 million people to cross that border unvetted and illegally. So no, we are not imagining anything. When I go outside my house and I look from side to side and across the street and I see what I see, I'm not, and see the gangs and see everybody that's not, well, let me say this, people who I know that's not from my community and people who I know that's not from here. When I see that invasion in my community, then I'm not imagining anything. No, I'm looking at that with my own eyes.
Thank you for sharing that.
I hate to say businessmen in my own district who want a lot more immigrants above the legal amount because they don't want to give their employees a raise. And I think that's the motive that's going on out here, because they know if we get a lot of people here illegally, they'll be able to work for less and they won't have to give the average American a raise, and I think that's a motivating factor too. We got to get the view from Chicago. Ms. Carter-Walters, do you have a view as to why these people want to encourage people to break the law?
Well, we believe that because the Democrat Party have a 21% approval rating, they need voters, first of all. And it's disgusting to hear that they're advocating for people who broke the law to get here, and to hear them talk about their rights, all while infringing on our rights as true American citizens, is disgusting. And that's why we, the people, trust President Trump, because he listened to us. He's a president of common sense, and who in their right mind will be pushing. Now they see that 80% want mass deportation of everybody. Like you said, when you allow millions of people to come over here illegally, saturating America, then that means that we have to get them out of here and then bring them back and let them come in the correct way. And this, under the Biden and Harris administration, they opened the border, and under President Trump, he's fixing the problem. So we, the American citizen, we are okay.